Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have as guest Dr. Paul Dyer. Dr. Dyer, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. And I just believe this is going to be an important issue.
It is, man. And I appreciate you taking the opportunity to be here to share your knowledge with the listeners and myself. But before we get into the conversation, or I allow you to share more about yourself, I just want the listeners to know that Dr. Paul W. Dyer has devoted his life to helping people help themselves, which is a really important duty, I would say, or work to help people to help themselves, because we want people to be as independent as possible. He's also a corporate emotional trainer. He also is a racially sensitive educator, skilled in labor and management, possesses experience in management, operations, and curriculum development. But I will not go through the list of things that Dr. Dyer have accomplished and currently doing. I'll give the opportunity to you to share with the listeners more about yourself and some of the things that you're currently doing.
Absolutely. So I'll make this real short because it's being an older Black male who survived many things from New York City and around the world. I have a long list of experiences. But in short, I have 4 PhDs and 5 masters,
Wow.
and I'm into neuroscience and neuropsychology and neuroanatomy and the human body and brain. So that is the short bit of it, along with that being a military vet.
Wow.
With special operations and things like that. So I do a lot of things around the world. And that's how I got into understanding the brain and mental health. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. You don't hear so many, not so many, but hear a lot of Black men have all the qualifications that you have. 4 PhDs, that an accomplishment in itself. 1 PhD is an accomplishment, but yet to have 4, that's really awesome. And know that you said you have served in the military. Man, that's great. How long have you served?
I did 15 years.
Man, that's awesome. And how long have you been in education, if you don't mind?
Oh, well, I've been in education my whole life. I think I know I was in education. My mother said, learn what you can, do what you can, and then share what you do.
Man, that's awesome. Man, yeah, so I know you have a lot of knowledge and experience to share with us today, being in the military and your extensive knowledge from the experience that you have gained and the journey that you have taken to gain all those different PhDs and knowledge, just knowledge in itself. Man, that's
Right.
just awesome. That's just awesome. So we're going to get into the conversation that we have here to talk about what we can do as Black men and what we're currently doing. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
So that's such a great question because it can lead into so many things. And I'm with my grandkids, so if you hear them in the background, I apologize.
Okay.
But as I got in what you call the brain science of what we can do and what's an impact, it's understanding our chemistry of how we process, how we express ourselves, or how we don't express ourselves. It's not, we always think of it as a positive and negative, and it does have a positive negative in the body, but the brain chemistry is what creates that function internally to the external process. So what we can do to have a positive impact is understand who we are and what we have come from and what we want to be right now. Not there's always nice to have goals, but goals can be subjective to your own perceived thoughts. So you could be you want to be an Olympic swimmer, and I work with the Olympics and Olympic Committee as a trainer. So it doesn't take a person wanting to be, you have to have some assets to know that you could be. And that's understanding of who you are. No one just gets plucked out of the woodwork and says, you're going to be X, Y, or Z because that's what we would like you to be, and that's what you want to be. You have to develop a training. You have to develop a educational process, and you have to understand who you are. Other than that, you're never going to make an impact. Matter of fact, you're going to consider yourself a failure.
Well, man, that's I really appreciate that perspective. Because you tend to hear, especially in the motivational space, that
Yes.
you can be what you want to be. Listening to you and the thoughts that your perspective that you have shared, it's like it's important that we understand ourselves, know where our strength lies, and then we use that strength to go into the area that
Yeah.
is more fitting to us. And I think that is a really great perspective, just in general, for all of us as people.
As people, one of the things that we fall short on is that we're trying to assimilate to a social system that's never wanted us to be successful anyway. So it's always you're pushing something uphill. And also, I'm a grandmaster in martial arts. I teach what you call flow body techniques. It is understanding your body's energy and your body's flow and your balance structure. Balance doesn't just mean on a physical balance. It means a spiritual balance. It means a mental balance. It means an emotional balance. If any of those things are off kiltered, you are unbalanced. Your words are unbalanced. Your actions are unbalanced, and your thoughts and intentions are unbalanced. So if you are unaware of what your balance points are, you're always going to be acting in an unbalanced state. And that's why I think one of the books that I've just recently wrote is called Conscious Confusion, is understanding it's a confusion understanding your own personal consciousness, because some people believe in a subconscious action, meaning that someone's running you. If you grew up poor or you grew up in a decimated traumatic lifestyle, you say, I don't ever want to be that again. So that point in itself is driving you. You're not driving you. You can be successful all you want, and you're going to still find yourself on a bridge somewhere, or with a gun in your mouth, or overdosing, or killing yourself. And that's mental health in a nutshell. If you don't understand your own consciousness state, you can always find yourself trying to commit suicide.
And that's well said, to say the least. But that's a perspective that you don't hear a lot. Because, as you mentioned, we sometimes operate from the subconscious space based on how we have the environment in which we were raised.
Right.
And
Right.
the environment influences us. And if we don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, then it's just going to cause, as you mentioned, your book, confusion, because you're not understanding your own experience or why you do the things you do.
So here's the one thing that people also get tripped on. They're like, but those are things that has happened to me. Those are factors. They're values that you can put into your own equation. They don't give you the outcome of the equation. They're just factors in the equation. So it's like an algebraic equation, or developing. And I'm into math and science. Excuse me before I geek out a little bit. But if you put a value in a structure of an equation, it's just what you have to account for. It doesn't mean it's a negative or positive or anything. It's just something you have to account for. And so many people use that account, meaning they use that value as an account, meaning accountability, that they still have to answer. And you can never answer the past.
Well,
You can never answer the past. You can only answer any projection forward. But if you don't understand your value and how you implement into the equation, then you're working without a conscious state.
man, that I appreciate that. That have me thinking. Just looking back on my upbringing in Jamaica and how the environment itself influenced me, and for a long time, I used to think that I couldn't, because I didn't really start to do well academically until I was after age 24. And because up until that point, I didn't believe, because I was operating on the paradigm that was fed to me and my environment. So that really limits me until I got exposed to a different consciousness, that it was possible regardless of my environment, regardless of what they have taught me, regardless of what my experiences are.
Yeah.
So it helps me to have that shift. And so just listening to you sharing that perspective. We don't hear that a lot because, we kept hearing the same thing over and over, even to be
Yeah.
who you want to be and not understanding who we are and what our contribution can be
Can
in the
be,
world.
right.
So I really appreciate, and then I know we can talk or listen to you talking about that perspective ongoing. But I'm going to go into the next question because I think we'll have the opportunity to talk more about what you just you shared earlier. So my next question is, what advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
I say, I write a lot. So I just recently worked on an article, and it's to say more men, and specifically just men in itself, need to start saying yes. Yes to what they are not. Instead of saying no, I don't want to be, say yes, but this is just who I am. I would like to be this. Say yes that you're not that. Don't say what you like to be, just say yes to what you're not. Yes to you being broke. Yes to you being uneducated. Yes to you feeling sad. Yes to love. Yes to the atmosphere. Yes, start saying yes and stop putting a negative state on what you're not. And if you start saying yes, which can translate into, most people don't know, to Yeshua, Jesus, meaning the Son, and all of enlightenment. If when you start saying yes, you actually change a brain chemistry to start functioning on a higher vibration, which starts triggering a better health. If you're not well, say yes to health. Don't say yes to sickness. Say yes, I can be, right? And
Yes.
once you start doing that, you start then seeking out how to be. Once you keep saying no, it's a negative way to not to do. When you say yes, you start to seek. Yes is a seeking word. No is a negative state.
Man, I appreciate that perspective because we answer to questions a lot in a negative way.
Yeah.
And if we constantly answer in a negative way, we are less likely to do what it takes to change some of the things that we need to change. Because as you mentioned, if our mindset is on the negative, we are less likely to look for what will create the change that we want. Because we're constantly thinking about what we are not. And even if we say what we're not, as just to respond to what you have said, it's like we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to seek what
Mhm.
to help maybe where we are short, because that's not, we say, no, we are not. So it's not, we need to. I think if I'm understanding what you're saying,
Yeah, and we'll do it simply. If you're driving in your car
yeah.
and you are low on fuel, you don't say no to fuel. You look, you seek a gas station because you need to fill it up. In that process, you are seeking what? You're seeking fuel for a car, but how about seeking fuel for your heart, for your emotional self, for your personal life, for your spiritual life, for your love life? Are you saying yes? Or are you just saying, I don't want that? Again, yeah.
Okay, man, that's a great analogy. I really appreciate that because that gives some perspective on the response in regards to what we need to look for if so we can be better or to be better for society or be better for ourselves and be better for our families and be better for just humanity on a whole. So I really appreciate that analogy because it gives it some consensus in regards to what we need to do if we want to be better, especially when we're talking about creating positive change. So my next question is, how can we, as Black men, help to change the narrative today? And you can choose whatever area you want to talk about, but how can we help to change the narrative when it comes to Black men?
Huh. The narrative of Black men is what, besides when I'm talking about the TV narrative, we're really talking about our self narrative, our slave syndrome, or what we keep, how we feeling so oppressed. So for Black men, listen, I hope they're listening. For Black men, I'm talking to you. You have to be better. And better doesn't just mean doing better, it means being selfless. There are so many young people out here who don't see value in life. And what you see in yourself is what they see in themselves. So if you project and be about living and stop acting in an ebonics way and disruptive way, then that's where we can be better. It's not just be better for someone else, be better for yourself because someone's watching you. Our young generation is watching you, and we have failed them because we're saying, oh, it's systematic, right? It's not just systematic because we keep creating the same system. We keep perpetuating our same mindset, so they're being poisoned. I guess I'm in my late 50s, but we didn't have a mindset of negative mindset. We had a mindset of change. The mindset of now the younger people under 50, they have a mindset of I can't do, and it's negative because they don't see themselves as change because they have not changed. They've been doing the same thing. They feel the same way. They pay the same electric bill. They say that this is just my life. Well, it isn't just your life, it's our life. So if you want to be part of a social civic society as Black men, then we have to be better. And that is to check each other. And it doesn't have to come off so hostile. It just says, how about, are you okay? That's how you check each other. Are you okay today? Right? It's, I don't know him and he's not going to listen to me, and how the kids go brah and whatever they use. It is check them and ask them, not how come you're not in class, or how come you don't want to go to school, or how come your grades are so low, or how come you're wearing your pants this way or that way or this way. Ask them, are they okay? Is everything okay? They don't know how to answer that because no one's ever asked them if they're okay. They probably also live in a traumatic life. And maybe they just need someone to talk to say, I'm shelter deprived. I'm food insecure.
That's right.
They don't feel like they can share that. So they go to, what the brain does is create a barrier for cognitive thoughts, meaning it's a thinking. It's all part of the frontal lobe and to take action to understand. So they stay in what you call, if people know the Maslow scale, they stay on the lower rung of Maslow. So they're just looking for survival, food, and reproduction. So that's sexuality. That's all they're looking for, just to reproduce, to find some sense of joy. That is the sickness of the brain. If you just create that pleasure center part of the brain of just an immediate satisfaction, then you will never proceed forward into forward thinking. So ask each other, are you okay? You can tell by their answers by what they don't say.
Correct.
But what they
Well, I'm not going to try and recall all of what you have shared. I may have to go back and listen to your response because you shared a lot of knowledge just now on what we can do to change the narrative. But one thing that really stood out, well, you shared so much that we can take from that perspective. But I want to just highlight what you have said, a few other points. And to start with, that people are watching. The next generation
Yes.
is watching. And what we do will affect them positively or negatively. And if we don't see ourselves as change or change agent, they're not going to see themselves as change agent or change agents. So we have to be intentional with sharing and showing them what is possible by being the example to the next generation. Because if we want to see change, we have to make sure we are demonstrating the change. If we want them to value education, we have to show them that we value education. If we want them to value self and self-care, we have to show them. And I really appreciate the perspective that you have made in regards to reaching out to each other. Let others know, especially as Black men, sometimes checking in. It's not always to correct, but also sometimes to make a difference is to just check in to show that we care about each other or what we can do. And the next point that I want to touch and that you have shared, that I believe is really important, especially changing the narrative, is to become selfless. We have to realize that this is not about me. It's not about you. It's about where we can go from here as a collective. And not just this generation, because what we do today should positively impact the next generation. So we
so I think one of the non-seekers have fallen to the trap of a Darwinism theory, right? Most people just keep saying the strong survive. They've actually missed Darwinism as he was talking about how the strong survive, because we live in an ecosystem that we share the life of living. We are not trying to survive. We share this ecosystem. We share all things. We're breathing the same air. We're in the same place.
Yeah.
So if we understand that the ecosystem survives by as we collectively, so it's not the strong shall survive, it's actually we survive. They
Right.
missed that part about the teachings of, and that's why things get mislabeled, misconstrued, or misspoken when they say, oh, the strong survive, so the weak will fall off. No, the weak fall off, that means you're dying too.
Correct, correct. And someone shared a quote earlier on social media where it says, I'm happy when I see my fellow brothers being successful because their success becomes my success. And I think that's the mindset that we have to have if we're going to actually position or reposition ourselves in society as strong people. Because if only one or two people are progressing, then we're not going to have enough strength to hold up the generation.
No, we're not. I mean, we don't live in a pyramid system. Our system is set up to be a pyramid system. It's set up to be a what you call a power over system, but that's the trap. When families, which you say have a strong family, there is no patriarchy society. It is a family, meaning everyone has a voice. So when you think that you're out there trying to hustle and make your dollar, you're actually thinking of a ladder system, a power over system. If I have $2, you have one, I'm better than you. If I have a high school education and you don't, I'm better than you. No, we should ask them, how come you didn't finish high school? Do you need help? That's how it should be, right? If I have $2, you have $1, and we can buy something for $3 that's going to make us better, let's do that.
Man, that's the mindset that we need to have. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have within our culture. We see other people, it's like our other cultures, like do it naturally. It's like second nature to them to join their resources together so they can move forward stronger together. And
one of the sickness, I think, the people in the United States, I mean, you're from Jamaica, but American Africans, because they're not African Americans anymore. I mean, there are some African Americans that came from Africa that live in America, but the majority of the slave Americans that are Black are more American Africans. So they don't have a culture. They've tried to grasp different cultures throughout the decades, but they technically don't have a culture. So the culture can be, what you say, improved upon just by us being improved.
man, I could listen to you sharing the knowledge ongoing, but I think being a person who have been exposed to different experiences, I think it gives me an advantage, being that I wasn't raised in this environment. So coming here gave me a different perspective, came with the desire to take advantage of the resources that's available to me. So because I didn't have all this resource available. So it gives me a different perspective, but I really appreciate your stance on just want to improve. And once we improve, we can change the perspective and the misconception that have been placed on us. And the same thing, somewhat applies to us growing up in the Caribbean because, we
Yeah,
all
yeah.
exposed to slavery and be seen as less than. But sometimes, just coming out of a different environment kind of give you a little bit an edge in regards to a stronger desire to want to take advantage of the resources because we didn't see
Yeah,
all
right.
what's here.
Yeah.
So, I'm coming to see, man, I'm trying to get as much as I can. So, not because one, we don't want to go back into what we started.
But it's hard to see past pain. When people live through traumatic experiences, their experiences become their eyesight. Their experiences become what their vision is, right? So it's hard to see past pain. And that's why I say we need to start saying yes. We need to say, yes, I'm in pain. And yes, I need help. And yes, I don't want to see pain anymore. Yes, I don't know how to have a healthy relationship. Yes, I don't know how to raise a healthy child. Yes, I was not raised as a healthy child from my parents. So start saying yes, and then that clears up your vision to see opportunity and hope. I don't think we see enough hope because we see through past trauma experiences.
And you know what? I really appreciate you sharing that because I think that's what holds us back a lot. We still operate from a place of pain, as you mentioned, and we still have the trauma because it has been passed down to us through our grandparents and our pass it down to our parents and stuff like that. So it's ongoing. So some of the things that we do it because of what we have experienced, maybe not personally, but what our grandparents and great grandparents have been through. So I really appreciate you sharing that perspective. And that leads me to my next question. I know you have a lot of different experiences and you have been on several different journeys, but I'm still going to ask this question. What or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on? You can start with where you went in the military, or you can start on your educational journey, or you can just share that journey itself.
Well, it's my mom and my dad.
Okay.
My dad was a Black Panther.
Okay.
My mom was an activist, but my grandmother was an activist. My great grandmother was an activist in the Chicago area. So it this is I want to share this. So this was the drum beat in our house. It's not what you are doing. She used to say, "What's next?" It didn't matter what it was. It could be I scored 12 points in a basketball game. She goes, "That's great. You had a great game. What's next?" Like, what's next? Are you going to score 13 or 14? But what is next? Who are you going to be next? Right? So it was not about just resulting on your laurels. It was about what is next. And then she was always saying, if you're going to grow to be a strong tree, make sure you grow enough and you drop fruit. So fruit becomes things for people to eat and a seed for others to grow. So if we're going to be in this ecosystem and you're going to be part of this ecosystem, then grow strong enough where you can drop seed so others can grow, so the environment can grow. And if you're not, then you are causing the sickness and the desecration of life. Saying yes to life means how do I cherish it and how do I help it live? So that's how it does. So everything from what my mom and my dad taught me
Correct.
was something that leaders in the military, because I was in special operations and things like that, and it's about what can we do to be better. That's why a lot of people don't make it. It's still less than 1% to ever join the military, and people just don't make basic training. And we're not even talking, that's just basic. We're not even talking about the other stuff that I was privy to. It's that so few people look past their own pain. They're saying, oh my God, I'm suffering, I'm in pain. I'm not sure if I can make it. That's when you should be able to decide, do you want to live or do you want to die? If you want to live, then you seek how to live. If you don't want to live, then you're choosing to die. There is no in between. Everything else is just a journey. But if you're not trying to live, meaning how do I live, not just better, not just surviving, but to live. Yes, I'm on food stamps. Yes, I wish I had a better job. Yes, saying yes is mean How do I get a better job? Let me ask for help. How do I get not food insecure? I need to ask for help. How do I get through things that are provided for me? Oh, I don't know how to fill out this paperwork. Ask somebody. Ask. We are not soothsayers. We just can't go around knocking on people's door and saying, I noticed that you might need help. How are we supposed to know that when you're closed off? And in that being closed off is where your suicide is. That's where your mental health breaks down. That's where you're overdosing yourself with alcohol and marijuana, and you're overdosing yourself on pills and opiates because you are so sad that you didn't say yes to life.
Man, that's really powerful. But I will just start with your experience growing up in the household with your parents being a part of the Black Panther party. And just I believe as the little that I know or come to know about the Black Panther is that they strive for being self-sufficient. So when you are self-sufficient, that means you have to go out there and try to become the best that you can be. You always have to be working on you and see how you can be. And also, as you mentioned, where your parents have told you or asked you what next, and just that whole experience, I think the knowledge that I gained from understanding what the Black Panther Party is about, they always try to contribute to the community that they're in.
That's right.
So if you're part of that or gain knowledge from those individuals who it got exposed to the Black Panther Party, it's like you need to become self-sufficient, and also you need to focus on what you can do for your community, because we are the most valuable assets to our communities. And if we're going to move the community forward, we have to feed it. We have to nurture it. And if we're going to nurture and feed the community, that means we have to feed ourselves. It could be with knowledge, it could be with training. So, and not everybody, I think, got exposed to that type of environment, because I think it really kind of positioned you to be somewhat disciplined, because you have to give your best. Just because I haven't really studied, but the little that I got exposed to, because I watched a few documentary on the Black Panther and their contribution to their community. And being self-sufficient was one of the driving force, because they want to take care of their own, and they see the importance of pouring into, especially the next generation, so they don't have to be dependent. Because I think being dependent kind of puts you in a position to be
subservient.
Yeah.
Subservient. You become a servant.
Correct. So being self-dependent is kind of the way to go. Even if you're working with an organization, you still need to have that mindset, because it drives you to give the best that you can be, so you can extract as much as possible from the environment that you're in.
I wrote a book called Are We Masters or Are We Being Mastered?
Wow.
And that's really to ask yourself the question, who are you serving? Who are you serving? So some people say, well, I serve my family. Okay, that's an easy answer. So how are you serving your family? Well, I go to work every day and I make sure they have a roof over their head. Okay, you still didn't tell me how you're serving your family. Being a service to your family is creating a space where people can evolve, not just stay stuck.
And I think that is powerful. And please, can you repeat the name of the book?
Are we masters or are we being mastered?
I think that's worth thinking about. We go forward on our journey. Personally, I think it is something that we need to learn to master ourselves, because I think if we're not masters of ourselves, we can be pulled in whatever direction people want to pull us in, because we're going to be led by their narrative and their perspective. And we only see ourselves through their lens, because we're not trying to master ourselves. So I think just the title of the book itself kind of give you some perspective of what you need to be thinking about. But I know you said you went to the military, you've been in education. Did you go into the military straight out of high school?
No, I didn't. I finished a double undergrad in 3 years and then went in. Yeah.
Man,
And
that's
I went in with the idea because I didn't know much about the military. I didn't know anything about the military. I just knew it was part of coming out of and went after the draft issue and things like that, and fighting what we call the fall of democracy. And then when you get in, and I'm a seeker, so when I got in, I dug like a badger. I went through a lot of things most people don't go through. I've been to several combat missions. I did a lot of things, but what I learned is what it was and being used for. It's the hearts of humans, and I think every soldier out there has the heart of a civilization. They want to be better. So using things got used against us by having us do the things we thought was good for it. Like when 9/11 hit, as disgusting as it was for so many people to die, people looked at them as terrorists. But what they didn't understand is that those terrorists were soldiers for their cause.
oh,
I've been in other countries, and I've done things that their country calls terrorists, and we call it patriotism. So it's a perspective for who's viewing you and what their reasons of how they view it as. So I have a service dog because I have post-traumatic stress disorder myself, and that's why I get into the brain science. But when people see my service dog, it says I serve a vet, and they say, well, thank you for your service. And I feel I'm thankful they're thanking me, but I want them to think about their lives too. So I always say, I hope your life is better that you can make others. I say it immediately. Thank you for my service. Well, my service, I hope, allows you to be better so you can help other lives be better. Because if it's just to help your life be better and you can buy a vacation home and be damned with the 550,000 homeless people that is recorded by the HUD in the United States, well, then I don't thank me for my service, because my service caused you to negate everyone else's lives. That's not what my service is for. My service is for humanity.
correct. I really appreciate your perspective. It shed a different light on a lot of things that we sometimes neglect because we don't have the experience. Because sometimes if we don't have the
Right.
experience or the exposure to it, we may not be thinking about it. And sometimes, as people, we get into the state of mind where we think about ourselves only and not realizing that we should be making contributions to humanity to help other people to live better. So I really appreciate your perspective and just your experience or the experiences that you have
Yeah.
gone through. So you
Yeah.
are now able to share with us through a lens that you get an opportunity to kind of not say create, but because of this different exposures you have had,
Right.
you get the opportunity to share from a different lens with us, with everyone that's listening. And that leads me to my next question. What is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
It's a sickness. We're infected. We have an infection that we just keep patching up and putting band-aids over. And with an infection, and this is a bad infection, I don't. This is not a scrape. This is not just a nosebleed. This is not just a wounded from a gunshot. We're infected. So we have to heal from within. Otherwise, the infection just keeps infecting other parts of the body or affecting other parts of society. We have an infection of our own personal mindset. And that's why I dug into the neuroscience. Until we clear that mindset of what you call cognitive consciousness thinking, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for humanity? Or am I just doing this? What is your answer? If you're just saying, well, I'm just going to work, well, you're actually missing the boat, because that means you're not giving a positive impact to the money you are earning. You just thinking you're just going to get a paycheck, but that money is a positive, but you don't look at your job as positive. You look at like, I don't like going here. I hate going here. But is it doing something positive? Are you collecting that paycheck and saying, hey, young child, young son, my mate, whoever you're with, we can do this together. Don't worry about the job. If you're still slaving at the job mentally, then you are discounting what you're doing. You're not saying yes. I'm going to keep saying that word because I don't think people understand how powerful that is. I hate my this. I don't have a car. I wish I had a car. I take mass transportation. You're infecting yourself with negativity. This is the infection.
And I want to go back to where you mentioned heal from within.
Mm-hmm.
And as Black men, I think that is really important because, as you mentioned, sometimes we're in spaces that we don't want to be in because, again, we're affected by how society may have positioned us or think or where or limits us based on their perception of who we are. And then we take on that belief and then we become subjected to the limitations or the perception or misconceptions of society. But that what you talk about, heal from within. How, as Black men, we would address that so we can be liberated, not just for ourselves, but to better serve.
I say but I love it. It is to pull away from yourself, pull away from your distractions, shut off the sports, shut off something that is distracting you from your personal thoughts. Shut it off, shut it down, and start listening to your body, start listening to your mind. If your mind is racing and you don't know how your thoughts are because you shut off your TV, you shut off your YouTube, you shut off your Twitter, you shut off all those distractions, all those sports. More Black men buy sports mobilia than anyone. Why is that? We have the least money and we spend the most money. It's ridiculous. So start shutting down the distractions and start hearing yourself think. If you're rambling in your thought process, that is actually how you're conducting your life. It's a ramble. So if you don't even know that you are a rambling thought person, like you don't even know what a good thought is, because you're being distracted by the other, whatever that other is, right? Whatever that liquor is, whatever that thing is that is distracting you, shut it down. Now do it for an hour, do it for two. The more you do it, the more you start to hear your thoughts. And this gives you the insight of the questions you could ask someone else, like, hey, I was thinking this, I'm not sure if it's correct, but what do you think? So now dialogue happens. Now questions happens. Now the seeking happens. You cannot seek when you're distracted.
And that's powerful because you are being, I think, pulled in several different directions. And I really like what you said in regards to pull away from the distractions. Because if we're going to get focused in on what we want to achieve or who we want to become, we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted. And it's great to know what the distractions are. And if we don't know, as you mentioned, you list some great things that we can be pull ourselves away from, like the TV, the YouTube, the social media, but whatever it is that distracts us from what we want to do. And sometimes you talk to people at times, like in coaching, and you realize that not everyone knows what they want to do. Because,
No,
then,
no.
you're trying to get them to pull away from
Mhm.
the things that distract them, but yet
Yeah,
in a moment they still don't know what they want to do or who they think they can become because they haven't really taken the time
right.
to look into that.
Yeah. I mean, we can learn from nature, and I love nature, and it is my healing place too. But if you look at a squirrel, it doesn't matter where the squirrel is, you see it. We're about 500 times bigger than a squirrel, right? The squirrel must be afraid of us, but they're not distracted by the acorns they have to get to pile up for their food supply. Why is that? So why are humans so distracted? It's not just humans, because they put things out there in our civic society, and it calls it civil unrest, causes your distraction. And the most influenced people distracted are Black men. The most people that are distracted are Black men.
Man, that's something to really think about. That is something to really think about. Because if we are distracted and we should be pillars of our communities, then one of the reasons why we may not be moving forward as much as we should is because we're not focusing on the right things.
Right.
And I know you mentioned something else that it's not coming back to mind right now, but it's in regards to I'll remember it as we go. But if we're going to move forward, we got to know who we are
Right.
and what influences us are, why we may act in the way we do. And
Right. And understanding our balance points, right? If
correct.
I'm distracted, I'm unbalanced. I'm mentally unbalanced. I'm spiritually unbalanced. I'm financially unbalanced. It's just that's systemic. If you want to be systemic and say racism is systemic, you're actually creating the process of staying in a system that is causing your demise because you are unbalanced. You're distracted. I give men is easy, right? Men are visual. Okay. So when people see a pretty woman or their wife or the love of their life, that's great. When they saw that person, you could have probably walked a gorilla in the room and they would have never seen it because they were not distracted from their eye on what they wanted. So how come everything else can distract you? How come your finances are in a mess because you didn't ask the question? You don't know how to bank well. You're not bankable. You don't understand how far you are unbalanced because you're distracted.
Man, that's worth thinking about. I tell you, it is worth thinking about, especially as you mentioned that Black men are the most distracted. And if we're thinking about moving forward, we have to take on the responsibility of moving our community forward. We see Black women are making strides, but as Black men, I strongly believe that we should lead the way when it comes to us making progress, come to our families making progress, come to us as a community, as an ethnic group, make progress. I think as Black men, we have to take on that responsibility and see it as an obligation to move us forward. But you said one more thing, but hopefully I get back to you there. Some other point in time, I will talk about it as you talk about
We could all, yeah,
cognitive
cognitive.
consciousness of thinking. But if we don't get to talk about it for this session, I know we will
Yeah,
get to talk about it again because I like to understand the mind more. And I think once we can understand the mind or how our mind have been affected or infected, we can break away from a lot of the things that seems to hold us back. Because then, I believe if we get a hold of what stopping us, I think that's a big part of healing from within. Because to change the exterior,
that's
we
right.
have to fix
Yeah.
the interior. And as you mentioned, we cannot keep saying that the system, yes, we know is not set up for us, but we have to move away from really saying it. We can say it, but we have to know that a big part of our progress is going to be what we do.
That's
And
right.
a big part of it is going to be, us healing and realize what our contributions can be, because I strongly believe innately we
Yeah.
are great.
Yeah.
We have the potential to do just about anything in the world. If you look at some of the inventions, the past inventions, that Black people have been very instrumental to the progress of the world. So, and some of these Black men and women who have shared their insights or inventions
Yeah.
weren't really have all of the resources, but yet they were able to come up
Have.
with solutions.
Right.
So,
You know,
go ahead.
I know they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And it's not. It's love. And it's not just simple as just love. It is love. When we love something, as in life, we're going to create a better life for it. So it's not just necessity. It's not just because I want to build a better mousetrap or to build this or build that. Because I love the thing I'm trying to do better at, I'm going to create something better for it.
All right.
That's love. That's not just necessity.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you develop the passion and love for what you want to see change, you're going to be thinking about ways to see how can I do something positive in this sense to help to change the things that I want to change. So that is so true. And I'm going to go into the next question. What was a pivotal moment in your life? You have a lot of different experiences. So what was a pivotal moment in your life?
When I almost committed suicide and I chose not to, that was a pivotal. That was pivotal. And the result of me not committing suicide was how society looked at us as soldiers. Without getting it twisted and so much, then that's why I brought up 9/11, because that was a very hard time for me. Not so much just the killing of, but the American people were having such disdain for terrorism.
Wow.
But they don't realize the stuff that I did in my operations and things like that were very terroristic. So if you knew that your friend Paul or your friend this or your brother, cousin also did things that are very horrific, then you must think of me and that must disdain. And a lot of us soldiers, that's why we commit suicide, because
Wow.
you have no idea of the atrocities of taking human life that we did. Now, you're going to say it's for you in the military. You had a job to do. You can call it whatever you want, but it still rips away from our soul, and you cannot ever justify your words of disdainment because we're on your team.
Right.
It is still a traumatic thing for us. So I didn't think that the society in the United States wanted me around. So it was better for me not to be here until I was at that point of taking my life, and I just cried and I said, I want to live. And that's why I'm here today. And so, I mean, I've done everything else before then, but that's why I'm here today.
Man, that's powerful and that's very insightful at the same time. Just to know that sometimes we see ourselves, through the lens of others by how they look at others, knowing because we have a conscience. So we're going to look at ourselves in that manner, being that we know what we have done and how society, looks at the individuals that you're looking at, knowing to yourself. And that can be really traumatic, and knowing the experience and not having someone to talk about that experience, being that in your mind or in anyone's mind, they may be saying that's disdain, that's wrong. So how can I talk to you about something that you're not going to really fully understand, being that you didn't experience
Right.
it, or you may have a negative, you may see it in a negative way. Then it can make the whole situation worse. Because if you see me as a bad person, that means I'm going to go ahead and act out on what I was already thinking about. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And if we have any persons in the military that's, veterans are, or just people who are currently in the military, sometimes, talking to people about the challenges that, you experience, I think, it can help a long way. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons, as you mentioned, that you're in brain science, just to understand the behaviors and how we may respond to life situation. So, man, but just listening to you, just your knowledge and the experience, and not just the experience in the sense that what you do, but what you yourself have been through, to be able
Yeah.
to share, not just from a place of knowledge where you go and learn, but from a place of knowledge where you have been through or had
Hmm.
experience. And I think sometimes those are what becomes really valuable in helping mankind to navigate their way forward.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I approach things differently. I approach things of how just so differently than most, and I do appreciate that. I know people do appreciate that. I know people care for that, and I try to help. I do help individuals see who they are too. That's why I say I teach people, right? I don't just tell people, I teach people. If I explain how the function is working in your thoughts and how it's affecting your body, then because you know the how it is, you can choose, you can now develop your why. I can teach you the how, but do you know the why? And if you don't know the why, then you're going to continue to do it anyway.
Correct.
So, but now I can show you the how. Now you have a choice. Prior to that, not knowing the how, you don't have choices. You're really just going off of what someone's telling you what works, right? Use salt on your chicken. That's just, you're cooking the way I want you to cook, but you don't even know why you need salt to cure meat. Well, then whose recipe are you using? You're really just following suit of another suit, but you're not cooking. You're following direction.
All right. Man, I really like your analogies because it gives you perspective. It paints a picture with the knowledge that you share. And I think some people do think in pictures. And I think it's giving them from that perspective where you
Yeah.
paint the picture, it helps them to understand how to create a change or why they may be doing the things that they are doing. We, as human beings, that's what we do. We grow up in an environment
Yeah.
and we follow what we see. And if we are in an environment that maybe say somewhat dysfunction, or in the sense
Hmm.
or of
Yeah.
sets limits on you, or just act in a limited way, you're going to take on that perception or that
That's right.
paradigm, that consciousness. And then that becomes your norm because you're just doing what you see. And some people,
Yeah.
after they get exposed, they start to change the paradigm that they grew up in. So, but I do really appreciate, you sharing that perspective. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
were you going to say something else?
No. I know you got another question that you may want to ask
Yes,
before.
yes.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know time. We could do this all night, so I don't know.
well, well, I have one more, well, two more questions really. But what life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation?
uh, Learned late in life is to um, not push your pain past your experiences because it disrupts your relationship with others.
Hmm.
I'll say it again. Don't push your pain past experiences because it's going to hurt your relationship with others. So I don't recognize the pain that I am or how I've been navigating it around. So I look through my experiences to help me feel better about myself. But in a relationship, they take on all of the things that you don't think you're giving. So they take the pain and they feel it, but you're wondering why the relationship is failing. It's because you're thinking your experiences and how you projected yourself and how you think your experiences are is better and to supersede your pain that they're receiving. So you don't understand why they're feeling bad or they're not in a good mood. It's because you have not been truthful. So you've pushed your pain past your experiences and it's hurting your relationship. And
Wow.
that's where people say, I didn't know why this relationship ended because you did not recognize the pain that you actually had inside. You thought if I just hide it well enough and I become happy and I just do really good things, that they won't feel this. That is just not true.
it starts to eat away with them because pain, happiness, all of it is a frequency vibrational code. And that's the signals kids, family, friends. I tell teachers all this all the time. You can come in with the happiest smiling face you want because you love teaching. But if you just had an argument with your spouse, the kids pick up on that in a frequency energy level, especially the kids that are hungry and don't have a good life. So they are going to act out not because they want to, it's because they're not getting what they normally get from you, which is a positive sort.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense because I tell you, I would go to the store, right? And in the store, in my mind, I'm walking around with a serious face where it is, I don't think it's welcoming, right? Because people tell me to
Right.
smile all the time. So I'm walking around with a serious face, but then somebody out of the blue pass everybody and come to me. And so it's not just what's on the outside. So they may pick up on something else, as you just mentioned, and decide to ask me the question. So I do understand that totally, that sometimes we go in space and we may be hurting, and people picked up on that in
Yeah.
itself, not just our outer appearances because we're smiling and look happy.
Right.
Because people do that all the time, because you have seen even some of those celebrities always on these shows look happy, and then you hear that they commit suicide and stuff like that. So, but as you mentioned, to understand ourselves and make sure, and that goes back to what you mentioned about heal
Yeah.
from within, because
Right.
we have to realize what's hurting us, so the hurt doesn't affect those around us, and
Right.
it's not going to affect them if we don't want to affect them. As you have mentioned earlier in the conversation, that we need to address, talk about it. Maybe even it's not with a person that are individuals that we are around, but someone who may understand and can help
Yeah.
us to get past that hurt. Because as you
Yeah.
have mentioned, hurt people hurt people. So if
People.
we are hurt, we are more likely to hurt others. So I really appreciate your perspective
Yeah.
on that. So my final question is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
For me, I actually think I have that impact, and it's to save lives. It's just, I am tired of seeing dead black boys in the street, dead black men in the street, dead people in the street. I'm tired of seeing people being mistreated, misused, in an unjust way. So I do put my foot out there, and I do put in the work. You can't just sit by. I would never sit idly by and watch things happen. I'm going to make things happen and then make them better as little as I can. Can I make all things better? But no, I can do what I can. And that's why we check in on saying, like, are you okay? Is that person okay? It doesn't matter who, what, and where these people are. I'm going to make sure I check in on it.
Man, and I think as Black men, I think that is something that we have to make become a norm. Because I was reading an article, I think during the pandemic, and when they did this survey amongst Black men who seems to be outgoing and extrovert, they
Mm-hmm.
realized during the pandemic that they didn't have a lot of close friends, and
That's
they
right.
become depressed. They have all sort of different sad feeling during that moment, because they realized that they didn't really have anyone really to really check on them.
But
Um,
that's because of it, and that's because of, we'll go back to what I said about distractions.
mhm,
There's so many, you create your own distractions, so you didn't hear your quiet space tell you that you really don't have anyone.
correct. Man, it is very important. And as Black men, and this is a call to action and a reminder
Yeah.
that, we reach out to each other, we touch base with each other. It doesn't matter, it's just sometimes just to check in to make sure things are going well. And I think if that becomes the norm, I think we'd be more open to talk about our challenges and the things
That's
that
right.
we would want help with. Because we grew up in an environment where people are going to look at you funny and maybe say, "Oh, I think you should have it. Why you don't have it?" So we have
Right.
it in the back of our minds. So if we think that's what society may say, man, I'm not going to talk about this challenge. I'm not going to talk about what I want. But go back to what you said, man. I think once we start saying, yes, we need that help. Yes, we need that support. Yes, we need the opportunity. And yes, we need others to check in on us to go back to what you have shared earlier. I think we will progress better as Black men, and we'll become better in what we contribute to humanity.
That's right. All right, my brother.
Yes,
I enjoyed it.
yes, man, it's great. So, man, it was a great conversation. So, Dr. Dyer, man, it's a pleasure having you here on the Black Male Impact.
I love being here on the Black Male Impact, and I know we there's more to do, there's more to listen, and people share, like, love, and do all those things. But I think what I want people to get out of this ultimately is to ask yourself the question, who am I? Not what I want to be. And then also start to listening to your quiet self. If you're rambling and you're confused, that's how you're acting. That is how you're living your life. That's why you're financially, unstable. That's why you're unbalanced. If we are here, you, I, and people are here for you to ask the question to. With all the social media, you're Snapchatting, TikToking, all the stuff. Ask one of us professionals and saying, hey, I saw this, I heard this. What do you think?
Correct.
Just ask.
Man, that's important. And listeners, as always, goal is to bring guests that we believe will share knowledge, insights, and perspective that I believe will be beneficial to all of us. And as we continue on this journey to make a positive impact, please continue to support, share, and just support us on this journey as we continue to make a positive impact. Thanks for being here with us on the Black Male Impact. Until next time, see you.
See you.